catching up with Viktor Andonov here at the Bethesda booth at E3 to find out a little bit about the art direction that has gone into BattleCry, a multiplayer online heavily melee-based game that's coming from a new studio, BattleCry Studios. First of all, you know, designing a multiplayer game from your perspective, how does it differ from what you worked on previously?
Well, I have actually worked on a couple of multiplayers, but the trade-off is clear for me. Instead of quantity and spanning over a big area, all the design creative budget is concentrated in something narrow. So for me, that's a great trade-off, because more detail, more stylization, and more time spent on a shorter experience. So rather than having epic scope and space, you have a more intense experience that's of a smaller scale. So that's the main difference. Less diluted work. This is concerning specifically this battle online player, that there are fewer levels, fewer characters, less space to cover and run around.
I feel like the environments that sort of your games bring always tell a story, and I think that's even more important in this, that the environment themselves tell a story. Can you talk us a little through what the war zones, what they're about, and sort of what you've been trying to picture there?
Sure. I mean, I'll start with, again, solving a design problem of how do you make something that could function in such a short, intense experience. We have 4 or 5 minute game cycles that are very adrenaline-driven, fast. And for me, the first starting point is, how does a soldier feel right before he dies? So I'm thinking of World War soldiers, World War I soldiers in the trenches. And then it gets easier, because when you're about to die, when your veins are pumping full of adrenaline, you don't perceive the world like in your everyday life. Things are surreal. Detail disappears, and people even could have hallucinations, and they are really on the frontier, gone to a different world. So this approach allows me to do a very symbolist imagery and allegorical, which I'll be using like examples. The sun that you see here starts dripping with blood into the clouds, and that's the most subtle first touch. But every time you lose or win, the environment is gonna change in a very expressive way. So therefore, the experience, the world has to be bold, very expressive, and reacting to you in a very dynamic way.
I guess something that is also about storytelling is the characters, because it's not really classes, is it? It's more characters that you're playing as.
Absolutely, yes. So all of these classes that you see have their backstory. I'm working with a comic book artist called Francisco Ruiz Velasco. He was Guillermo del Toro's storyboarder and concept artist for whole of his movies, and he just joined us to do this with us. And we're developing a comic book for each character that we're doing internally in the studio, and we'd release it. Each one of them has an origin story starting from their childhood, some story and drama that happened to them, and how they became a warrior. So first you have the factions that are very opposite, British versus Cossacks, completely different flavors and cultures, and then of course, yeah, every character is very specific.
You're still keeping the third faction there under wraps. I suppose they're also going to be very different from the ones that you're talking about.
Absolutely, yes, and they'll come from a different territory, a place of the world, but we'd like to reveal it when it looks good.
Absolutely. Something that I thought about immediately, of course, is that 3 factions, 3-way warfare. I know that you're sort of considering and playing around with that. Is that sort of part of what you're trying to do here?
Yes, absolutely. That's the idea, to have a 3-way balance, and it gives more variety and probably more excitement.
I guess one thing of the personality, I mean, you're talking about the comic books, maybe not all people will sort of experience that, but I think the weapons and sort of the way that the characters are dressed as well, it sort of tells a story as well. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that's gone into that? Maybe some specific examples.
Sure. So a specific example is I'm back to World War I, where you start having airplanes and tanks, and for the first time in history, soldiers get to wear camouflage uniforms. In this game, there's no need to hide, because you're like a gladiator in an arena. You're there to be massacred and sacrifice yourself. So all the uniforms are actual historically inspired parade uniforms that were used in the 19th century, the Napoleon Wars, which was much more ritualistic way of warfare. You marched with a drum roll to your death in a certain step, and it would have this civilized flavor of soldiers killing each other while the civilian population was untouched. So it's a paradox between savage violence and clean hand civilized war with the physical property and civilians don't get hurt and politicians keep their hands a bit cleaner. So specifically uniforms or parade uniforms, they're very colorful and they represent the majesty of the European empires during the 19th century. I forgot to mention about the weapons. The fact that we are eliminating powder gives us a lot of opportunities to develop mechanical devices that are very functional and reactive. Imagine like having a crossbow that's like a Swiss clock, very handcrafted, hand-designed mechanisms that you know, all mechanical.
So I suppose, obviously, this is a game that sort of is going to evolve over time. It's free to play. What kind of, how does that change your approach to sort of designing the world? And because I guess there's going to be changes made along the way. Is it an ongoing process, or have you already thought up a universe where you can pull stuff in?
As you can see here, for me, ultimately, the players would react to this, but I'm trying to establish a very strong identity which the players would hopefully embrace and follow through, and that'd be the best case scenario. And you know, things could be added that are illogical or silly, that's fine, but right now I'm in the process with the team, the BattleCry team, of establishing the DNA and having a strong DNA and very strong identity, visual and game experience identity is going to drive this. So further down the road we can open it. This is a tip of an iceberg. There's no ending to which continent we can go fight or time period, but I want a strong core. And that's why right now every uniform, weapon and building and cloud is very specific, and I'd like to keep it this way as long as possible.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure to see the game come out, and we always enjoy the worlds you create.
Thank you very much. Enjoy E3.